Hi, I'm Mike Buzzy. I'm the founder of Eastwind Healthcare. And if you're a veteran, which would be why you're looking at this video because it is designed for veterans that have acupuncture here, I wanted to make a special video talking about my connection to veterans and our commitment at Eastwind to treat veterans. First of all, my grandfather was a lieutenant colonel in the National Guard when he retired. I was 3 years old in 1960 when he retired. And his military career got me the opportunity to spend a lot of time with him because he was 50 years old. And we lived in a small town, and I spent a lot of time with him, which led to a lot of trips to the coffee shop. When, of course, I didn't drink coffee, but, the favorite grandson got chocolate malt each time. And during coffee time, they would bring you the whole tin and put it on the counter in front of you, like the old, sweet shop, soda shop kind of places. So I have very fond memories, and the military afforded that situation for my grandfather. And I grew up in the 60s, born in 1957 at the height of the Vietnam War. I was just reaching, my 10th year and 11th, 12th, preteen years, watching what was going on. And so I knew that the in church on Sunday when we prayed for the the soldiers, the boys in Vietnam was always the way that it was phrased, and I remember that well. I remember watching the scenes on TV as it was reported on the news. So the veterans that served, particularly at that time, was at a very influential time in my life, and so that has a lot of meaning for me. I grew up in a small town in Wisconsin, and I want to fast forward now to becoming an adult, and in 1998, starting Eastwind Healthcare. But I moved to Appleton in Wisconsin in about 1982 or 83. And growing up in another town in Wisconsin, in Sheboygan County, I knew of the local hero from Appleton who was a football player for the Pittsburgh Steelers by the name of Rocky Bleier. And if you're a veteran in Appleton, you should know the Rocky Bleier story because prior to him becoming a pro football player, he served in Vietnam. And he not only served in Vietnam, but he um, was wounded. He got a Bronze Star and a Purple Heart. Um, the story of his wounding, and I had the pleasure of meeting him um, this past spring in Nashville. And it was an emotional experience for me because his story goes like this. He was the local hero at Appleton Xavier High School, went on to Notre Dame, and played football at Notre Dame, got drafted late or free agent, I forget which, but was with the Pittsburgh Steelers. In his rookie year, he played mostly special teams. And they would always bring mail into the locker room, and he never got any mail in the locker room until he got his letter from Uncle Sam, which you guys from Vietnam era know what that was. That was a draft notice. And so he had to go in. So he went in and served, and he got caught in a firefight. And um, I, he was wounded and took, um, I think it was a shot to his hip or thigh, and he was laying on his back, um, launching grenades in the direction where the enemy fire was coming from. And there was an incoming grenade that hit his CO in the shoulder and bounced toward him and landed between his feet. And he said before he could react, it went off. and it blew part of his foot off and part of his butt off, and he had shrapnel up his leg. So here is a professional football player that is significantly injured in battle. He then his unit then received assistance, and the firefight ended, but he was obviously significantly wounded, and he was dragged out on a tarp by two guys. The two guys became fatigued and were unable. They had been up for several, more than a day without sleep, and in an intense firefight. And these two guys were tired, and they were having a conversation about leaving him and coming back later. And he was in a state that I'm not sure how conscious he was, but he knew that they were having that conversation. And he said, out of nowhere, a pair of black hands reached for him and single-handedly hoisted him up on to his shoulder and carried him to the evac. When he woke up in the recovery ward, he thought he was pretty screwed, that his football career was certainly over. And why would this happen to him? But he said there was a guy in the bed across from him that lost 3 of his limbs. He had 1 arm left, and that was it. And that guy provided the energy and the positive attitude for everybody else in that recovery unit. And after a few days, Rocky thought, if he can keep a positive attitude, missing 3 limbs, why can't I? So he committed himself to seeing this through and rehabbing himself. Long story short, he made it back to a 12-year, I do believe, football career in which he was on the Pittsburgh Steelers winning team in 5 Super Bowls. So, why is that so meaningful to me? Number 1, I grew up in Wisconsin. Number 2, during the Vietnam War. Number 3, I'm a huge sports fan, and I knew who he was. And then I got to meet him and hear his story. This gets more meaningful to me because I started Eastwind Acupuncture in 1998, and about by the right around 2015, so about 15 to 17 years in, we started getting referrals from the VA. And it was during the opioid crisis, and the VA was charged, the VA doctors were charged with getting these people off of opioids that were in chronic pain. And unfortunately, they didn't give them a lot of options, but what they did do is say, we've got this, what's now community care, I'm not sure what it was at that time, but it was something. You could send people for acupuncture. So here in Appleton, the local VA clinic started sending people over. And I think they were probably surprised that the first people they sent over got great results. And when they went back to their doctors, the doctors asked them about acupuncture, and they were told, yeah, that's great stuff. I love that. I'm feeling much better, And I think to the amazement, the first reports came back so positive that, and to the lack of other alternatives, that the doctors just started doing referral after referral after referral after referral. And we were kind of, I wouldn't say inundated, but boy, did we get a lot of referrals. And we took it upon ourselves to recognize that as an opportunity and to learn how to do this. And so that's basically the story. So starting in about 2018, that's when the flow really increased. And since then, we've been getting 100 to 120 referrals a year of you guys. So that business really drove Eastwind to a higher level of success in business. The profitability of dealing with veterans from a business perspective varies. When I started, it didn't look very profitable, but I wanted to do something just because of the things that I told you. It became quite profitable, and now with budgetary changes and that type of thing, it's not very profitable again. We're still committed. I'm still committed. Even if I lost money doing this, I would want to figure out a way to keep it going, to keep offering it, because um, I have that level of appreciation, and we want to do something. So if you're a veteran, now you understand a little bit more about Eastwind and why we do what we do. Um, but you're important to us, and we welcome you. So, thank you.